Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to another review. And the film I'm about to look at is called The Amateur. That's right, The Amateur. Now, I didn't even know this film was coming out. I didn't even know it existed. I discovered that this film was coming out and was about to hit when I was sitting in the theaters and the trailer showed before The Working Man, which of course stars Jason Statham, which I thoroughly enjoyed. That was an action-packed vigilante rescue type, action movie. It was grounded, it was nitty, it was gritty, and Jason Statham was just fantastic in it. Now we get The Amateur, which, watching the trailer, it looked like it was full of action. It looked like, something similar to Enemy of the State, I believe, with Will Smith and Gene Hackman. But that's not quite what we get, and we need to talk about it. So, first and foremost, The Amateur is a 2025 American vigilante spy action film directed by James Hawes and written by Ken Nolan and Gary Spinelli, based on the 1981 novel of the same name by Robert Little. So the film stars Rami Malek, Rachel Brosnahan, Katrina Baffy, Michael Stolberg, Holt McCallany, Julianne Nicholson, and Lawrence Fishburne. That's right. So the premise of this movie is very simple. You have this CIA high-tech worker. He works in computers. He works, in systems. He works, decoding messages and files. He's like very high up and well educated and trained in computer systems, and is like a decoder or tracker or whatever you would like to consider him within the CIA. So that's his job. He is very much in an office all day, working on computer systems, working with files, systems, all of that stuff. Really well educated, and that's his job. He's like high up in the CIA, and that's what he does. And then his wife works, I guess, as a government official. In the beginning of this movie, you're introduced to this happy, go-lucky couple that, are living like the perfect life. They're building a life together. They're very happy indeed. And then suddenly tragedy strikes. Tragedy strikes when his wife is killed when she is in London during a terrorist attack. And of course, Rami Malek's character is absolutely devastated, brokenhearted that the love of his life has been killed in this way. So, he's still in shock initially. He allows, his boss who works at the CIA to do, an initial investigation to try and bring down the terrorist that caused this terrorist attack that ended his wife's life. But generally what ends up happening after that is things don't seem to progress fast enough. So he decides to do an internal investigation on his own. Like I say, very intelligent, knows his way around the computer. And then he kind of figures out that the CIA aren't really investigating or pushing forward into this terrorist attack for a very, very good reason, which I won't spoil, because if you want to see this film, don't want to spoil all the surprises. But then he figures out that the CIA aren't truly doing their job properly. So he decides to gather enough information to blackmail the CIA so they will then train him to become a field agent to go after the terrorists that killed his wife. Straight away, the positives of this movie, the story is really well written. It's a really fun story. He's like an everyday person like you and I, who is very smart, knows his way around a computer, but doesn't have the skills to go out there on the field to be like a field agent, to use a weapon. And he's basically using his smarts and his intelligence and the things he knows and gathers to get what he wants, which is to be trained. Lawrence Fishburne's character is the person that he is given to train him in the uses of weapons, but Lawrence Fishburne's character literally has no faith in him. He literally cannot use a weapon, cannot use a gun. He's absolutely useless. And deep down, I think he knows he's useless. But then what ends up happening when the CIA believe he's going to be more of a threat than good, I think they're secretly going to try and take him down. And this is where the plot of the movie takes a different turn. And he decides to break out on his own and go after the terrorist on his own. And he kind of goes on this mission around different locations and tracks down the terrorist and kind of slowly, in his own way, because he's not a field agent, he's not trained, he's useless with a gun. He has to find other intelligent ways to take down these terrorists. And he does. And that's the smartness of this movie. That's the fun of this movie, that he gets to do that. And Remy Malek is just perfect casting for this role. He truly is. He delivers. He's so believable as the grieving, widowed husband. And you can see his frustrations, you can see his anger, you can see he just wants things sorted and he wants justice for his wife. They're the fun part of the movie. Once you get past those kind of little integral plot building elements, the brick building, to get to the point where he now is going to go out there on his own to go after the terrorists, that for me is where the film then slowly kind of falls apart and it kind of peels back. A working man is a full-on, full-fledged vigilante action movie about a man that's trying to stop, this human trafficking, and it's wham bam, thank you, man. It's non-stop adrenaline. This, however, slows very much down soon as you get past the initial building of, the plot of him going after these terrorists. It takes a really slow turn, and it doesn't feel as gripping or is, compelling as what The Working Man did. The story, I love the story. I think it's a great concept, but they had so much potential with this particular film. And I feel that the pacing, the second half of this movie takes a rapid decline. It is revealed that, this is one mini spoiler, that there are 4 terrorists that were involved in the terrorist attack. And this is one of the negatives of trailers, is the trailers basically showed you 2 of the terrorists and what happened to them when he finally finds them and gets his revenge. And that for me was like a huge spoiler. The other 2 that you don't get to see on screen and you see how they get what's coming to them, it's not as big or flashy or, is what you expect, especially when you see the trailer and you see the 2 big action sequences. The other 2 action sequences in the second half of the movie fall flat. Where with the working man, it's wham, bam, 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 boom. And I think, the working man, Jason Statham character, is a trained ex, worked in the British, I think, military or navy. I cannot. Oh no, I think it was a British Marine. So he was a field agent. He was trained. So you get the action sequences, you get the fights, you get, the quick, adrenaline fights and all that good stuff. With this, because this character is not that way inclined, and he's basically just an average person who had a desk job who's now going after these terrorists. How he has to kill the terrorists is in unique ways without actually getting near them or fighting them. And it kind of, they could have done it in a way where they built adrenaline or they built suspense, or you are sitting on the edge of your seats thinking, is he going to get caught? Is he going to, be fumbled when, is he going to be able to succeed? But they don't really build any kind of suspense or any kind of, tension between him and the terrorist, or even when the FBI, not the FBI, the CIA are trying to track him down when he goes vigilante. There's no real kind of stakes. It doesn't feel, that he's on the run for me personally. It didn't feel as if he was hiding. It didn't feel like the CIA were really in a rush to find him. And every time he seemed to just turn up in a city or a place, there was no kind of, scenes where he's trying to get through, like, for example, an airport and he's got to use fake ID, and you're like, oh, is he going to get caught? Is this way, they're going to do like some sort of twist in the plot? It's literally one terrorist dies. Next thing you know, he's in another city in another country and he's plotting the demise of that terrorist. There was like just no kind of, it just felt very formulaic, or, in how they delivered and built the movie, instead of, building any real tension or any, real, it just falls flat for me right at the end. It just didn't grip us or pull us in the way that a working man did. And right at the end of the movie, you're introduced to the final terrorist. And, you would expect, some big finale. These two people, one's an intelligent, everyday person who uses his wits and his all of his, intelligence when it comes to like computers, and he slowly works his way around boats and in devices, and you would expect there would be at least some sort of big shootout or some sort of big battle or some sort of, anything of that nature, and you don't get that. And the ending just felt very subpar for me. And, you don't have to have a movie that is full of action. Just a tiny bit of action, like this has a tiny bit of action, but it would be nice for you to make you feel that you are going on this very, dangerous ride and this dangerous mission, where this just didn't feel like there was any danger. It didn't feel as if there was any risks or any jeopardy to him. And that is what, for me, it took me away from the film, where the working man, there were times where Jason Statham's character or the people he was trying to save, you were worried that they were going to meet their end. There was some stakes, there was some risk. Where this, it didn't feel like that. And that, for me, is the negatives of the movie. But Rami Malek, superb actor, perfect casting, perfect character for him to play. The overall story was a fun story. I love the concept. I just wish they did more with it. And the other actors and the other cast members, for me personally, just don't really deliver much more than what they're given, and as for the villains in this, you didn't really get much time to get to know them or to get to truly, grow a dislike to them. And the pacing issues for me is I wouldn't even say there's pacing issues. I would just say it's the fact that, like I say, as the plot progresses, it doesn't feel like there's much danger or real threats or any real stakes to them. It's like everything he does seems to just work. Just seems to work. And, he gets pretty much the job done by film's end. So because of that, because there is a big difference between the working man, and I've never read the book, but I do know that this character, John Berahall, sorry, I can't even see his name, he literally just left to a cameo, which is kind of disappointing. And I've heard that a lot of fans were displeased because his character had a bigger role to do in the book than he does in the actual movie. So it's kind of disappointing as well, because he's a fine actor. I love him as the Punisher. Oh shit. But overall, if I'm going to have to rate The Amateur, I'm just going to give it a 5 out of 10. I seen the trailer in The Working Man and was really excited. Once I got into the theatres to see this one, it just wasn't the film I was hoping it would be. But, you win some, you lose some. But that's all I can really say about The Amateur. Like I say, the positives is amazing concept, amazing story. Rami Malek, perfect casting, does an amazing job. Lawrence Fishburne, he does, what's written on the tin. He's always a fine actor and he does a great job in this. The rest of the characters, meh, who cares? And like I say, there was no real danger, real stakes, and it just didn't feel like, it could have been a better movie. That's all I really can say. But that's just my opinion of The Amateur. And another thing one other thing I will say that I never mentioned is, The Working Man feels like a movie made for cinema. It was made for the big screen. This, for me, should have been on streaming. This was not a film built for cinema. It was built for streaming. Similar to Mickey 17. Fun little movie. For me, I did like a lot of some of the characters, and I liked the plot. Like this, I liked the plot, I liked the concept, but it just didn't feel big enough, epic enough, or for the big screen. It felt like it was made for streaming. In this, for me, The Amateur is another movie that's getting a lot of promotion and getting put out there for the big screen, where it should be sitting on streaming. And that's the problem with cinema these days. And, they really need to sort out what's a movie for streaming and what's a movie for cinema. And this feels very much simply for streaming. So with that said, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10 in my ratings. 5 out of 10. I wish I could rate it higher, but like I say, it just wasn't the movie I thought it was going to be. But what's your thoughts of The Amateur? What's your thoughts of the state of cinema and streaming right now? What do you think of Rami Malek? Let me know in the comments below. This has been the Entertainment Headquarters. Please like, share, and subscribe. And like I always say, keep on enjoying your movies. Keep on enjoying all things entertainment. And I'll catch us all at the next one.